Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this is my late 2016 MacBook Pro. This is the 13-inch model, and it's what I use when I'm on the go. And this particular MacBook I've had for an entire year. I got it when it was brand new last year. It's the Skylake processor, 3.3 gigahertz, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 SSD. So it's pretty much the top of the line. After tax in the United States, it's about $2,500. Yes, it's very overpriced, and I've enjoyed using it for the most part, but I wanted to talk about what it's like 1 year later, because this was a major change to the MacBook Pro line. On this particular MacBook Pro, we just have our USB-C or Thunderbolt 3 ports, our headphone jack, and then we have two more of them on this side, and that's it. No more SD card slot, no USB Type A. That's it, and that's a pretty big change if you're someone who makes a lot of videos like I do. They also made it thinner, which that part I appreciate. They made the trackpad much larger, and they made the keys all very shallow as far as the travel goes. And then, of course, they added the touch bar. So we have a lot to talk about after a year. And I can say confidently after a year, I enjoy it, but I still don't enjoy it as much as my 2013 MacBook Pro that I used for editing for years up until this version came out. Now, this particular one, I love how portable it is. I love the design of it. I think it looks great. There's no more light up logo. It's now stainless steel. This is the space gray model, and I think it looks pretty good as far as the looks, the weight, the aesthetics of it. The build of it is top notch, but there's a few things that make it fall short. So the design, like I said, looks great just to look at, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily functional in everyday use. We thought maybe we'd see a ton of USB-C and different things taking advantage of this, and basically it's become a normal way of life to use dongles. I use a dongle for my SD card, and I use dongles for just about anything, displays, everything to adapt to something else. So that part's kind of a pain. It's still not the norm, although there are more and more devices like the CalDigit hub that I use at home with a monitor, things like that, which make it very convenient to do everything out of one port. So there's advantages, of course, but I'd love to see the whole market just adapt to that, both on iPhone and on MacBook and everything else. Now, the next controversial thing is the touch bar. We got rid of the function keys, and instead we have this touch screen. And this touch screen has one major thing that I like about it, and it's really not the touch screen at all. It's the Touch ID sensor that's over here. This Touch ID sensor is probably the best thing about the new one that they changed, basically making it super fast to lock and unlock the computer. I put this lock button here, tap and unlock, it unlocks the computer. It makes it super convenient, and it just works really simply and well. You can use Apple Pay with it and everything else. But the touch bar itself, while it adapts to different applications, I really could care less about it. In fact, I find that I hit it more often than not and cause it to do something I don't want for it to do. So if I'm in something like iTunes, it doesn't change. But if I open something such as the App Store, you'll see it changes a little bit. We've got some different buttons here. We've got top charts, categories, but I don't really care about looking down on the keyboard. I want to see what's on my display. I don't care about what's down on the touch bar. It takes my eyes off the display while I'm working, and that's more frustrating than not. I'd rather just have these on the bottom of the screen as an option as far as that goes, instead of having to look from the display and back down. I honestly very, very rarely use the touch bar. Even in Final Cut Pro applications like that, I've maybe used it once in a great while. And as Final Cut Pro is opening here, what we've got is the timeline, and you'd think this would be super convenient to trim and everything, but I'm much faster using the keyboard and the trackpad to do the exact same thing. So I don't find it very useful at all. Yes, you can see the timeline in it if you want to do that. You can see the timeline and move across the timeline, but it's just as fast to use two fingers and move across the timeline. I don't understand what the point is here other than kind of looking pretty from time to time. I'm sure there's people that love it, but it has no tactile feedback. There's no force feedback, nothing. So I don't know what you're actually touching. And like I said, more often than not, I'll accidentally hit it and lock the display or something like that. While I'm typing, my fingers will slip up and hit this. So I could live without the touch bar, but I love having the Touch ID. Just give me the function keys back and keep going from there. Now, as far as the trackpad goes, the larger trackpad, I really like it. The palm rejection's good. I don't think about it, and it's something I actually appreciate. So after a year of use, I like it. When I go back to a previous Mac that I've used, the touchpad feels small, and I just like the more real estate that you get on this one. The display looks really good. It's 2560 by 1600, and every time I look at it, I really appreciate it. It's as good as the new iPhones. It's P3 wide color gamut compatible, and it just looks phenomenal every time I look at it. It's what you want in a display. It's accurate and vibrant and goes very bright. It's great, and I don't even think about it. I just look forward to using it with the display because it's so good. Now, the keyboard we have to talk about while we have this open. Now, for someone like myself, I don't mind this keyboard, but someone that's really into mechanical keyboards or wants a lot of travel and touch types really well is probably going to hate this keyboard if they haven't tried it already. If I go into a document and type something like, "Hi, how are you?" there's not a whole lot of feedback. However, because I tend to type differently, I don't mind the key travel, and I've gotten used to it. So when I use this keyboard, I quickly adapt to one with a little bit more travel, and I tend to like the really flat keys, similar to what Apple has on their Magic keyboard. I use the one with the number pad. This keyboard has very little travel, but it has more, but I really don't mind either way. However, for most people, you're going to really, if you haven't tried one of these, definitely try it out. If you're really into touch typing and mechanical keyboards, you're probably going to hate it. And Apple really didn't find a happy medium here. After a year of use, I'm completely used to it. I don't even think about it anymore. But if you can't get used to something like that, you're probably not going to be a big fan. The travel is very, very little. And the feedback is better on this than it is the previous MacBook, but it's still not a ton of feedback, but I find I can type faster on it because I don't have to push it as much. So it just depends on your typing style and what you think. But after a year of use, I still like it. Now, the battery is good. I probably get through about 6 hours with normal use, 7 hours. My normal use might be video watching, maybe editing some photos. But if I'm video editing in Final Cut Pro, my time decreases dramatically, and that's to be expected. Editing 4K video, things like that, it's really going to kill the battery much quicker, and it's just something you deal with. Normally when I edit, I plug it in, and that's something I do. Unfortunately, it's not a replaceable battery, and we don't expect that, but it's underneath, and you can sort of replace it, but it's not really designed to be replaced. And that's the bad thing about this whole thing, is the whole MacBook Pro is on one chipset. It's on one board, and you've got the processor, you've got the RAM, everything soldered to the board, and that's the unfortunate thing about this. The trade-off is it's super thin, but you lose any repairability. So if something breaks on this, you have to replace the whole board. You can't just replace parts because Apple doesn't fix the boards. They throw them out and just replace them, or just give you another MacBook. And that's the problem with this MacBook and all of the new MacBooks. They're just not very repairable, and that leads to long-term durability. We're not really sure how it's going to be. It's built very, very, very well. It's very strong and stiff feeling. You don't have to worry about that. But if you were to drop it, in fact, I have a few chips on it. I've never dropped it, but I have some chips from the finish in the corner. You can see it's worn a little bit. It's not terrible, but this has always been kept in a bag, and it is aluminum, so it is not the hardest of metals either, so you could dent it pretty easily. So if you're clumsy, you definitely want a case on this, or just be very careful with it. I slide it into a bag that's padded on both sides, so I don't really worry about it too much. The speed of the MacBook seems to be fine for me. I can edit 4K video all day long in Final Cut Pro. In fact, I edit many of my videos on this when I'm on the go, and I ran some benchmarks just to give you a different idea of what it might be capable of. But I ran a Geekbench benchmark, and it's okay. And then I also ran a Cinebench benchmark. And when it comes to the OpenGL test with the video card, no, it's not going to be top of the line, but it's about half of what you would get from an RX 580. So I used one of those connected through an external GPU and got a pretty significant score, but when I'm not using that external GPU, it's about half. So I think the speed is plenty fast for most people as far as editing and that sort of work goes. So that's it. After a year of use, I still like it a lot. I wish it was a little bit more upgradable. You can't ever upgrade this. You're stuck with what you've got, so you might as well get the best you can afford if you're going to get one. Now, Apple did come out with Kaby Lake processor versions with the latest processors that are available in mobile, at least earlier this year. I actually have a 2017 MacBook Pro 15-inch. That's my main editing device, and I'll do a follow-up on that if you'd like. But as far as this laptop goes, I can recommend it, but I wouldn't recommend it at full price. If you can get it refurbished from Apple with the same warranty, or you can get one used or get one on a discount, that would be the way to go, because it is a great device. It's just not worth $2,500 in my opinion. But let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.